I stepped out of my truck and heard the crunch of gravel under my boots. I didn't expect my peaceful valley to be under siege by the self-appointed tyrant of the HOA, a woman who thought she owned every inch of land she laid her eyes on. What she didn't know was that this entire valley already belonged to me. The road into the valley was just as I remembered, narrow, winding, lined with towering pines that whispered in the breeze. The farther I drove, the more the city seemed like a bad dream I'd finally woken up from. Out here, the air smelled of pine needles and wet earth instead of exhaust fumes. The only sounds were the distant rush of a creek and the occasional cry of a hawk overhead. When my tires finally crunched onto the gravel drive that led to the old family cabin, I felt something loosen in my chest, like I could breathe fully again for the first time in years. The cabin came into view, nestled between tall aspens and looking almost exactly as it had when I was a kid. Weathered logs, stone chimney, a porch that sagged just enough to creak under weight. To anyone else, it might look like an old shack ready to collapse. To me, it was a fortress of memories. I parked the truck and stepped out. The crisp mountain air hit me immediately, cool and clean, carrying a faint trace of wood smoke from someone else's chimney. The sound of my boots on gravel echoed in the valley, and for a moment I just stood there soaking it all in. It had been nearly 15 years since I'd last stayed here. 15 years since my father passed and the cabin became mine. I'd avoided coming back, too wrapped up in work, obligations, and grief. But now, with my life in the city unraveling, it felt like the right time to return. I walked up to the porch and laid a hand on the railing. The wood was rough, cracked but solid. My father's handiwork. I could almost hear his voice. This valley is more than land, son. It's a legacy. As long as you respect it, it'll always take care of you. I closed my eyes for a second, smiling at the memory. That's when I heard it, the sharp, unmistakable sound of high heels striking gravel. Totally out of place here in the mountains. When I opened my eyes, she was already marching toward me, a woman in her 50s, blonde hair lacquered stiff with hairspray, cream-colored suit pressed crisp as if she'd walked straight out of a board meeting. She carried a clipboard clutched tight against her chest like it was some kind of holy scripture. Her lips were pursed, her eyes narrow, her chin high, and her heels. Those ridiculous stilettos were sinking half an inch into the gravel with every angry step. "Excuse me," she snapped before she was even within 10 feet. I turned slowly, eyebrow raised. "Yes? What exactly do you think you're doing here?" I glanced around at the cabin, the porch, the valley stretching wide behind her. "Standing on my porch. This is private property," she fired back, pointing a manicured finger at the cabin. "And you are trespassing." I blinked, stunned by her audacity. "Trespassing? Lady, this is my family's cabin." "Impossible." She looked me up and down like I was a stray dog. "Cabins in this development are part of the High Pines Homeowners Association, and as president, I don't recognize you." "President?" I echoed, suppressing a laugh. "That's right. I oversee all properties in this community. Occupancy, renovations, landscaping compliance, safety inspections, you name it. Everything has to go through me." She rattled off the words as if she were reading them off a policy manual. "Well, then I guess I should have brought you a fruit basket." Her eyes flashed with annoyance. "Don't be smart. You can't just waltz in and take over a cabin without filing the proper forms. Occupancy request, board approval, neighborhood review. It's all very clear." I leaned against the railing casually. "Yeah, see, here's the thing. I don't need board approval, because this cabin doesn't fall under your HOA. Her laugh was sharp, high-pitched, and completely humorless. "Oh, please. This entire valley falls under the HOA. Cabins, the lake, the trails, everything. You don't get to make your own rules." I studied her, trying to figure out if she was serious. Judging by the smug look on her face, she was dead serious. "Well," I said slowly, "that's going to be a problem for you." She bristled. "Excuse me?" "Because I own this land. All of it." For the first time, a flicker of uncertainty crossed her face. "You own it?" I nodded. "Every acre." She recovered quickly, plastering on a mocking smile. "Oh, really? That's a cute story. But unless you have documentation, your little fantasy doesn't mean much in the real world." "I've got documentation," she sneered. "Then I suggest you get it ready because, as of this moment, you're in violation of several HOA regulations. Unapproved occupancy, potential code violations, and..." She skimmed her clipboard theatrically. Possible structural hazards. I almost laughed again. You just got here. You haven't even stepped inside. Don't need to. I can tell just by looking. She turned sharply, heels sinking again. You'll be hearing from me, mister. She squinted at me. What's your name? Ethan Cole. Her pen froze above the clipboard. She blinked. Cole? Yeah, that a problem? Her lips parted, then shut again. She clearly recognized the name. But then she gathered herself, her face hardening into a mask of authority. No problem at all, she said tightly. Just means I know who to find. With that, she spun on her heel and marched off, each stomp of her stilettos punctuating her fury. As she disappeared down the gravel road, I noticed something. Curtains twitched in nearby cabins. A man holding a rake froze mid-motion, pretending not to stare. A woman on a porch quickly ducked back inside when Karen glanced her way. It wasn't just me she ruled over. These people were scared of her. I shook my head and stepped inside the cabin. Dust coated the counters, cobwebs filled the corners, but it was still the same place I remembered. In the back, tucked into a desk drawer, was a leather folder. Inside, neat and safe, were the original deed papers. Not just for this cabin, for every plot of land in this valley. My father had bought them up over years, parcel by parcel, until the whole valley belonged to him. And when he passed, he left it all to me. Karen didn't know it yet, but her little kingdom was built on sand, and tomorrow she was going to find out just how wrong she was. The next morning, the valley was drenched in golden light. Sunlight spilled through the aspens, their leaves shimmering like coins in the breeze. I stepped out onto the porch with a mug of coffee in hand, watching mist curl over the creek down below. Peaceful. Exactly. What I came here for, at least until the crunch of tires broke the silence. A white SUV rolled up the gravel road and stopped right in front of my cabin. The driver's door flew open, and there she was again, Karen in the same cream suit, only this time with a pair of oversized sunglasses and a smug expression that made me want to laugh. Behind her came two men in matching polo shirts with HOA compliance printed on them. They looked like they'd rather be anywhere else. Karen wasted no time. She marched up to the porch, clipboard already in hand. Mr. Cole, she said sharply, I hope you enjoyed your unauthorized night here because it will be your last. You are officially in violation of High Pines HOA regulations. I took a long sip of coffee and set the mug down on the railing. Morning to you too, Karen. Her jaw tightened. This is not a joke. You are trespassing on HOA property. As of now, you have accrued fines totaling. She scribbled something and held up the clipboard. $3,050. One of the polo shirt guys winced like even he thought that was ridiculous. I whistled low. That's one expensive cup of coffee. Karen ignored me. Additionally, you are hereby ordered to vacate this property immediately. Failure to comply will result in towing, lock replacement, and possible legal action. I let her rant, then leaned casually against the porch post. You finished? Excuse me? Because if you are, I think it's about time I showed you something. I ducked inside, came back with the leather folder and laid it gently on the porch railing. Opening it slowly, I pulled out a thick stack of documents, yellowed deeds, property transfers, county records, each one neatly notarized. Karen's smug expression faltered. This, I said, flipping through the pages, is the deed to this cabin. Bought by my father in 1974. This one, I held up another sheet, is for the plot across the creek. And this one? That's the ridgeline. Her face drained of color as I spread them out. And this, I said, pulling out the final folded paper, is the master deed. My father bought up every parcel in this valley over 30 years. Legally recorded, fully owned. And when he passed, he left them all to me. So you see, Karen, you don't own this valley. I do. For a long moment, there was only the sound of wind rustling the trees. Then Karen laughed. It was high-pitched, nervous. Nice story. Very dramatic. But HOA jurisdiction supersedes individual deeds. You can wave those around all you like, but the HOA has governing authority here. Really? I asked. Funny, because I called the county clerk yesterday. I pulled out a fresh printout. And they confirmed this valley has never once been submitted for HOA jurisdiction. Not legally. Which means every notice, every fine, every rule you've slapped on people here, worthless. One of the compliance guys actually coughed like he was trying to hide a laugh. Karen's face went red. That's absurd. The HOA charter clearly states, charter doesn't mean a thing if the land's not under HOA control. I tapped the deed. This isn't your kingdom, Karen. You've been bluffing people, and they've been paying you because they didn't know any better. Her eyes darted to the cabins down the road. A curtain fluttered as someone peeked out. A man stood frozen by his woodpile watching. Everyone was listening. Karen's voice rose in desperation. No one will believe you. The HOA has been here for years. We make the rules. We maintain order. Maintain order, I repeated. Or maintain control. She glared daggers at me, but her hands trembled around the clipboard. I leaned in slightly, lowering my voice. I know what you've been doing. The endless fines, the bogus citations, forcing people to repaint their cabins, cutting down trees without permission, charging fees for using the lake. You've been bleeding this community dry, but that ends today. Her nostrils flared. You think you can just waltz in here and take everything I've built? Not take, I said. Reclaim. Karen's mask cracked then, the polished veneer slipping into raw fury. She spun to her compliance goons. Seize those documents now. The two men exchanged looks. Neither moved. Karen shrieked. What are you waiting for? Do your jobs. One of them finally spoke. Ma'am, if what he's saying is true, we can't. Shut up, she screeched. I calmly gathered the papers back into the folder. You should leave, Karen, before you embarrass yourself further. Her face was crimson now, lips trembling with rage. For a moment I thought she might actually explode. Instead, she jabbed a finger in my face. This isn't over. You'll regret this, Cole. I'll have the sheriff out here within the hour. Perfect, I said with a smile. Bring him. I'll be waiting. She stormed back to her SUV, heels sinking deep in the gravel, muttering curses under her breath. The compliance guys trailed after her, clearly done with the whole charade. As her SUV roared away, the valley grew quiet again. Then slowly, doors creaked open. Neighbors stepped out. The man with the woodpile walked closer. You really own all this? He asked. Every acre, I said. A woman down the road added softly. Does that mean the HOA can't fine us anymore? I looked around at their weary faces, people who had been living under Karen's thumb for years, and I felt the weight of responsibility settle on my shoulders. That's exactly what it means, I said. You're free of her. The relief on their faces was instant, like chains falling away. But I knew it wasn't over. Not yet. Karen wasn't going to give up her little empire without a fight, and something told me the real battle was only beginning. The sheriff's truck arrived just after noon. I had been stacking firewood out by the shed when the sound of tires crunching gravel made me look up. Sure enough, the white SUV was back, Karen's headlights flashing like she was leading a parade. Behind her, a dark green county sheriff's truck rolled in, dust swirling around both vehicles. Karen hopped out first, looking triumphant. Her cream-colored suit jacket flapped as she stormed toward me, clipboard already in hand like a sword. The sheriff stepped out more slowly, adjusting his hat, his expression unreadable. Sheriff Dawson, Karen announced in her shrill voice. Thank goodness you came. This man is an intruder. He broke into this cabin last night and is refusing to leave. He's threatening me and the entire HOA with forged documents. The sheriff glanced at me. That true? I shook my head, calm as ever. Not even close. Sheriff name's Ethan Cole. My family's owned this valley for nearly 50 years. This cabin and every acre of land around it is mine. I've got the deeds inside if you'd like to see. Karen's eyes bugged. Sheriff, don't listen to him. He's a liar. I'm the HOA president. I've overseen this community for a decade. This man is nothing but a squatter. The sheriff studied us both, then sighed. All right, let's see the paperwork. I walked inside, grabbed the leather folder, and returned. Opening it carefully on the porch railing, I handed him the master deed and the stack of property transfers. Sheriff Dawson took his time, reading each page slowly. He wasn't the type to be rushed. Meanwhile, Karen hovered behind him, fidgeting, muttering under her breath like a kettle about to boil. Finally, the sheriff looked up at me. Everything's in order. These records are real. County clerk signed off on them. Looks like you're the legal owner here. Karen let out a strangled laugh. That can't be right. Sheriff, you don't understand. The HOA controls this land. We've been running it for years. He's making this up. The sheriff fixed her with a steady stare. Karen, I've told you before, HOA rules don't mean squat without legal jurisdiction. And far as I can tell, this valley's never been submitted. Ethan, here's the rightful owner. Karen's face went crimson. No, no, no. That's impossible. She stomped her heel so hard it sank into the gravel. We've fined people. We've enforced rules. We've maintained the community. The sheriff shrugged. Then you've been doing it without authority. Neighbors had gathered now, forming a loose semicircle around the standoff. I saw relief, hope, even some barely concealed grins on their faces. For once, they weren't afraid to watch. Karen spun toward them, voice rising to a shriek. Don't just stand there. You know me. You've followed my rules for years. Tell him. Tell the sheriff this man doesn't belong here. But no one moved. No one spoke. Finally, the man with the woodpile, Tom, I remembered someone calling him, stepped forward. His voice was steady, quiet, but it carried in the stillness. Karen, we've only followed your rules because you scared us into it. You fined us for the color of our doors. You cut down Mary's maple tree because you said it was too close to the road. You even charged us for using the lake our grandparents swam in for free. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Heads nodded. Someone muttered, She charged me for having a bird feeder. Another added, She tried to tow my truck for parking on my own driveway. Karen's head whipped around, her face twisting in fury. How dare you? After everything I've done for this community? I've kept this place respectable, orderly. Without me, this valley would be chaos. I stepped forward, my voice calm but firm. No, Karen, without you, this valley would be free. The sheriff closed the folder and handed it back to me. Far as I'm concerned, there's no crime here. Ethan's within his rights. You, on the other hand. He fixed Karen with a hard look. Might want to think about all the money you've taken from these folks. Could be some charges there if they decide to push it. Karen gasped, her face draining of color. You wouldn't dare. Tom crossed his arms. Maybe we would. The crowd's mood shifted then like a dam breaking. People spoke up louder now, braver. You threatened to evict me over my dog. You made me pay $500 because my curtains weren't beige. You told me my roof shingles were the wrong shade of brown. Karen spun in circles, pointing her finger wildly. Lies, all lies! But the more she screamed, the less anyone listened. Finally, she let out a furious wail. You'll regret this, all of you. If I lose control of this valley, I'll shut it down completely. I'll burn this whole place to the ground before I let you take it from me. Her words hung in the air like a curse. Even the sheriff stiffened. I stepped closer, meeting her eyes. That's the difference between you and me, Karen. You think owning something means controlling it. I think it means protecting it. This valley isn't yours to rule. It never was. For a moment I thought she might strike me, but instead she spun on her heel, stormed back to her SUV and slammed the door so hard the echo rolled across the valley. Gravel sprayed as she tore down the road, disappearing in a cloud of dust. The sheriff shook his head. She's not done. Mark my words, she'll be back. Folks like her don't let go easy. I nodded. I figured as much. The sheriff tipped his hat, then turned to the neighbors. If any of you have proof of her fines or payments, gather it. Might be time for a lawyer. As he drove off, the neighbors stayed. One by one, they came closer. Tentative but grateful. Tom clapped me on the shoulder. You don't know what you just did, son. You gave us our lives back, I smiled, though I knew it wasn't over. Karen had been humiliated, but humiliation only made people like her more dangerous. The valley was mine, yes, but to truly free it, and the people who lived here, I'd have to finish this fight. And something told me the next round would be in court. 2 weeks later, the valley no longer felt quiet. It buzzed with tension, like the air before a thunderstorm. Karen hadn't disappeared after her humiliation. She doubled down. Flyers were shoved into mailboxes claiming I was a fraud. HOA letters, fake and aggressive, still showed up at people's doors. And then came the big one, a lawsuit, filed under High Pines HOA versus Ethan Cole. The charges? Illegal occupation, falsification of deeds, community disruption, and defamation of HOA authority. When I got the papers, I laughed out loud. Defamation of HOA authority? I muttered. That's a new one, but it wasn't funny. She'd hired lawyers, real ones, and if I wanted to put an end to her tyranny once and for all, I'd have to fight her on her battlefield, court. The county courthouse was a squat brick building, its flag flapping in the autumn wind. Inside, the air smelled faintly of old paper and coffee. Karen sat at the plaintiff's table, flanked by 2 lawyers in sharp suits. She looked smug again, Her blonde hair sprayed into a helmet, her cream suit freshly pressed. Every time I glanced her way, she smirked like she already won. I sat at the defendant's table with my attorney, Lisa Morales, sharp, confident, and utterly unshaken. She flipped through our files with the cool precision of a surgeon. "Don't worry," she whispered to me. "She's walking into her own grave. We've got everything we need." Judge Reynolds entered, gavel striking wood. "Court is in session. High Pines Homeowners Association versus Ethan Cole." Karen's lawyer stood. "Your Honor, this man is an imposter. He has squatted illegally in HOA-governed property, threatened the president, and fabricated ownership claims to undermine community order." I had to bite back a laugh. "Fabricated ownership? We had the originals," Lisa rose smoothly. "Your Honor, my client is the sole legal owner of the entire valley as confirmed by county records. The HOA has never filed for jurisdiction here, meaning every fine, every citation, and every fee charged by Ms. Karen and her so-called board has been fraudulent." A ripple went through the courtroom. Neighbors had packed the benches behind us, eager to see justice. Karen's lawyer sniffed. "Bold claims. Where's the proof?" Lisa smiled. "Right here." She handed over the thick leather folder, the same one I had carried back to the cabin weeks before. Deeds, transfers, notarization, each page airtight. The judge flipped through them, nodding slowly. "These appear legitimate. Clerk's seal, signatures, records all match. Mr. Cole, you've got quite the inheritance." Karen leapt to her feet. "Forgery! He forged them! He's tricking all of you." The judge frowned. "Ms. Karen, sit down. You'll have your turn." She sat, trembling with fury. Lisa called our first witnesses, the neighbors. Tom was first, hat in hand but voice steady. "Judge, for years she's fined us for everything. My shingles weren't the right shade of brown. $600 fine. My son parked his truck in the driveway. $200 fine. None of it real, but she threatened lawsuits if we didn't pay." A murmur rippled again. Next came Mary, an older woman with tears in her eyes. "She cut down my maple tree, said it violated HOA sightline rules. That tree was 50 years old. And she made me pay for the removal." Then others. Stories of intimidation, harassment, money drained for nothing. Every word weighed heavier against Karen. When Lisa rested, Karen's lawyer rose. "Your Honor, these are emotional testimonies, not evidence." Lisa was ready. She pulled out copies of the fine notices, hundreds of them. Each one stamped with HOA logos signed by Karen demanding payment. The judge's eyes narrowed. "Ms. Karen, how do you explain this?" Karen stood trembling. "I was keeping order. Without me, this place would fall apart. These people are ungrateful. They need rules." The judge's gavel slammed. Order in the court. When it was her turn to testify, Karen strutted to the stand with her nose in the air. "Your Honor," she began, "I am the glue that holds that community together. Without me, it would be chaos. Unkempt lawns, tacky curtains, rusted cars in driveways. I was protecting property values. I was protecting civilization itself." Lisa leaned in. "So you admit you imposed fines without legal authority?" Karen blinked, thrown off. "I was acting in the community's best interest. Answer the question. Did you have legal jurisdiction?" Karen squirmed. "Well, no, not technically. But everyone accepted it." Laughter broke out in the gallery. Even the judge smirked. Lisa pressed harder. "So you collected thousands of dollars, destroyed property, and threatened residents? All without any legal power to do so?" Karen snapped. "Yes, because they needed me. Without me, that valley would be nothing but dirt and weeds." The courtroom erupted. People shouted, booed. The judge banged his gavel furiously, but the damage was done. Karen had admitted everything. Judge Reynolds adjusted his glasses, his voice firm. "This court finds that Ethan Cole is the sole legal owner of the valley in question. The High Pines HOA has no jurisdiction and never has. All fines, fees, and penalties imposed under its authority are null and void." Karen gasped, face pale. Furthermore, the judge continued, "Evidence shows that Ms. Karen knowingly collected money under false pretenses, intimidated residents, and abused her position. Therefore, she is personally liable for restitution of all funds collected plus damages." His gavel struck. "Case closed." The gallery erupted in cheers. Neighbors hugged, clapped, some even cried. Tom slapped me on the back. "We're free, Ethan, finally free." Karen slumped in her chair, stunned. Her empire, her illusion of power, had crumbled in a single moment. Weeks later, the valley felt alive again. Kids laughed by the creek. Families gathered at the lake without fear of usage fees. Cabins were painted bright colors, gardens bloomed wild. Wind chimes jingled from porches, things Karen would have called violations. One Saturday, we held a community picnic by the lake. Tables groaned under potluck dishes, music floated through the air, and neighbors who had been strangers under Karen's rule laughed together like old friends. I stood at the water's edge, watching the sun set fire across the mountains, and felt my father's presence beside me. "Protect it, son," I imagined him saying. "Don't let anyone fence in freedom, Karen." Last I heard, she'd moved out of the county, drowning in lawsuits and debts she couldn't pay. Her reign of terror was over. The valley was ours again, and this time it would stay that way.